Hello, everyone. I'm Commissioner Tom Wistersill of the Big Sky. I'm here with Jim Cavell from Influencer, and we're here to talk about name, image, and likeness. So you might be asking yourself, why are we here? Why are the two of us on the screen? And we're here to have a really good kind of exchange today about ideas, about what name, image, and likeness means, what Influencer is going to do with the Big Sky Conference, how all of this kind of comes together. And then maybe at the end, we'll even try to attempt to look into our crystal balls and see what the future looks like in this uncharted territory. So, Jim, maybe first on this, just maybe introduce yourself, please, to the Big Sky folks. Tell us a little bit about Influencer, and then we'll kind of get into kind of name, image, and likeness as a whole. So go ahead, Jim.
Well, as you mentioned, my name is Jim Cavell, and I'm the founder and CEO of Influencer, and we are a software as a service company, so a tech company that has been in this college sports space since about 2017, and brand building for student athletes has always been our focus. Our app has been an app that now more than 100,000 student athletes have on their phone, and they use it to get content of them playing, practicing, journeying through their college career. And of course, that content is shot by the institution, but also shot by some of our media partners that cover the games that these athletes play. And we knew from day one, the more content we could get student athletes and the more often we could get it to them, the more they'll share to social media and tell their story for playing at your institution and playing in this wonderful league. And that's going to help them grow their audience. And our system and our app helps them measure that growth, but it's also going to help the institution reach a tremendous amount of people that they wouldn't normally reach on social media through their team accounts. And so it's really a win-win, and it's led to a lot of growth for us. Now, as we go into the NIL era, there's a lot of new things we do. I know we're going to talk about NIL in a second, to help athletes realize the brand value they're building through Influencer. But ultimately, my passion as a former student athlete is helping student athletes take this 4-year window when they're playing college sports and the stage they're so fortunate to play on in the Big Sky Conference, and use it to set the stage for the rest of their lives. And if we can get them thinking beyond the game now, there's so many more opportunities they'll produce for themselves. And that's really the heartbeat behind Influencer.
Yeah, great stuff, Jim. Appreciate that. So as we think about name, image, and likeness, so it's a new day in college athletics, and what changed was, now student athletes used to not be able to. Let's think about the past, right? They couldn't use their abilities essentially and their marketability to make money for themselves. And so this door has opened up where students can be very entrepreneurial and look at the audiences that they have. And they're different for different schools, different locales. In the Big Sky Conference, as many of you know, we're in 8 states. So, there's 8 different state laws in various stages. Some states are allowing this on July 1st. Others are going to allow it in the next few months. Some haven't even begun a discussion into name, image, and likeness. And so this is all new. So our schools are now having to figure out, and our student athletes are now starting to figure out, hey, how can I take advantage of this? I can now make a video about how to shoot a free throw and profit off that. I can partner with a local car dealership and sign autographs. I can get a roast beef sponsorship, and me and my football teammates can eat off that beef sponsorship, as I know happened in a school out east. So it's just open up these doors that are really positive. This is a great step forward for the NCAA student athletes. We're really excited about it in the Big Sky, and we really want to embrace this the right way. Another point I want to make before we get into some of this, Jim, is one of the things we've noticed already is the ability for the non-revenue sports, the non-football, non-basketball sports, to profit off name, image, and likeness, whether it's gymnasts or softball, volleyball players, our cross-country teams. We've got a national champion in the Northern Arizona men's team. So the ability for those student athletes to now be able to profit off this is really cool. And I'm sure you've seen this, my guess, in other areas as well.
I have, and listen, so for the person coming in cold on NIL, the reality is this: student athletes have always been able to build a brand that's valuable while they've been in college. And social media has only increased that opportunity, because all building a brand is getting your name and yourself in front of more eyeballs, right? And social media allows you to do that tangibly. You have followers and you can see who they are and how many you have, right? But any athlete that plays at this stage is able to build a brand that they had to usually wait until after college to monetize, whether it was getting a great job because they were on this stage playing college sports or playing pro sports or doing endorsements or whatever it might be after college sports was over. Now you can do the front end, build your brand, and the back end, make money off of your brand in college. That's what's changed. And even though there's not state laws in every state, the waiver that came out from the NCAA and the Board of Governors on June 30th allows every school to set their own NIL regulations. And what the Big Sky is doing in our partnership together with Influencer is helping create really a system to set, communicate, and track these NIL regulations across the entire conference to the student athlete who needs to know what the rules are, needs to know how they can follow them to make money and build an NIL business, and needs to know how they can do things in a way that compliance can track so they can stay safe, right? So that's for the layperson coming in on NIL where we're at. Of course, we all hope there'll be one set of rules federally so everyone can adhere to one set of regulations at some point, but that's not the case today. And so what that means now is the student athlete doesn't just wake up and all of a sudden there's money in her bank account. The student athlete has an opportunity to use this the same way they can use a lot of other things they're afforded by being a student athlete to create value. So there's all kinds of inventories. You mentioned a few examples of them where a student athlete can make money now that they couldn't before. And so is it going to be building a merchandise business, is selling t-shirts? Is it going to be autographs? Is it going to be social media endorsements? Is it going to be producing content on social media that advertising networks can sponsor? There's so many ways, but you're going to have to take initiative. It's just like everything else. You get out what you put in, just like playing time, just like being the leading scorer on the team, just like getting a 4.0 in school. It's not going to come easy.
Starting your own software company, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So these are all things that are on the table now, and it's exciting to watch young people who usually are more innovative and take more initiative than we do. As we get older, we might lose a little bit of that dreaming that it takes to be an entrepreneur. And so I think some special stories are going to come out of these student athletes who now have this opportunity, but it's going to take work. It's going to take initiative.
Yeah, absolutely. So good. So you and I both have this wonderful list of questions and some data. It's one of these things. I mean, it's great to have the conversation, but we do want to cover some tangible things here to talk about the Big Sky. So it looks like you're going to ask me the first question. So fire away.
Well, I'd like to know, for you as a commissioner, I think this is pretty innovative that you're looking at the entire league, all the institutions, all the student athletes, and saying, hey, how can we provide solutions to help student athletes and institutions navigate this new landscape? And so what value do you think our partnership is going to bring the Big Sky institutions and the student athletes?
Yeah, we're in 8 states, right? So again, like I said, so there's a lot happening around the conference. We put together this task force around the league. We had athletic directors and senior women's administrators. We had some outside people outside our conference, some alums, and we had 2 student athletes as part of this evaluation committee to look at all the different opportunities. As you know, Jim, you're one of many businesses that are doing this in the space. And so I think we saw 8 different presentations, visited 8 different companies, narrowed it down to about 3 finalists. And about, the great thing about your product was you solved so many of the things we were looking for, right? So we believe this partnership puts our student athletes in the best position possible. We're a student athlete driven conference, right? Without student athletes, none of us are here. So, we want to do the best thing we can for them while also assisting our schools in managing this incredibly difficult time. It's because it's uncharted territory, right? So this opens up all those opportunities. It helps the student athletes build their brand. It's going to help them find the right deals. Again, to your point, Jim, and you're right, the ones that really want to do it are going to maximize the most. Others, and that's okay, they don't have to do anything, but it just provides a framework and a platform for them to, to move forward with it. For our schools, this provides kind of best in class service and kind of a tailored education and expert advice. We're short staffed in the Big Sky. We don't have 17 compliance people like some schools do, right? We usually have one and a half. And so access to this provides that type of information and best-in-class service to our student athletes. Our responsibility will always be to help the student athletes on their journey in every way possible, right? We want to assist them in graduation. We want them to be great student athletes. We want them to be successful on the field. And now we want them to be successful with name, image, and likeness. And this partnership will help us do that. And lastly, one of the things we're excited about is we think this really provides a recruiting advantage for our coaches to be able to say to student athletes, we've got this in place. Student athletes are going to come to colleges smarter about this than ever before, and they're going to be asking questions. And so I think our coaches will be well equipped to say, we've got Influencer, here's the things that they do that are going to help you maximize your opportunities. And so we're really excited about that. One little side note I think is kind of cool is the way that the photos uploading process will work with the artificial intelligence, where, so when Eastern Washington is playing at Northern Arizona in a softball game, and the Northern Arizona photographers taking pictures of the game, when they upload it, they'll automatically tag all of the Eastern Washington student athletes, and then they can use those photos for their marketability as well. So, that's just a number of things that are kind of really cool about this, and we look forward to maximizing those opportunities.
Yeah, that's really neat. The power of the collective, I think, is what you're going to really be leveraging by doing this as a league-wide initiative. You talked about student athletes taking advantage of this, and some will more than others. And so, what type of unique NIL opportunities do you see some Big Sky student athletes participating in?
Yeah, again, with our footprint, we're in big cities, we're in small cities, we've got metropolitan areas that have multiple schools, so this very diverse footprint that we have, I think, really provides unique opportunities. And so, what you're going to see the student athlete at Portland State do or at Weber State might be certainly different than in Pocatello, Idaho, or in Bozeman, Montana. And then it's back to what the student athlete really wants to do. Some of them want to make a little money on the side, maybe get some free meals. Others want to help build a brand for a future career and those types of things. So I think back to the point you made, Jim, and we talked about earlier, kind of the entrepreneurial spirit of this. It's certainly uncharted territory, but smart people will make smart decisions and come up with things that are really cool. So I think you're going to see the Big Sky hopefully be a leader in this nationally, in how we're going to try to, work with our student athletes and help them on their journey. And that's why you might see some really cool stuff come out of places like Flagstaff, Arizona, with some of those nationally known names from the cross country program. Eastern Washington men's basketball had a close loss to Kansas in the NCAA tournament this past spring. And so you start to think about what could have happened right after that. And so I think I'm excited to see the creativity that we find around the conference. So we'll see on that. All right. So here's my turn now to ask a couple questions to you, Jim. So put you on the hot spot here. No, I'm not kidding. Okay. So one of the things that we looked at was educational opportunities. So we're no experts. You've been in this space a lot longer than anybody in our league. We really want to, talk to our student athletes kind of now about what can Influencer do to help those student athletes? What can they provide to them, from an educational standpoint? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, one thing we tried to do early on, as we knew NIL was going to happen, is build a system inside of the same influencer app that student athletes use to get content and share it and grow their brand. Build a system where they can learn. And so we launched the Storyteller Playbook, which student athletes can find right inside of their influencer app. And it's there for them to access short articles and videos from pro athletes, teaching student athletes about building a brand and monetizing it from their perspective as they've done it at the pro level, but also subject matter experts in the financial space, like Team Ultimus, in the legal space, like my guy Luke Feldman and Anomaly Sports Group, and even Wasserman giving a lot of tutelage on the things they teach pro athletes when they sign them and represent them as their agents, but giving that same education to student athletes to understand how to look at themselves like a business and think about themselves that way financially, legally, and beyond. And so I think a lot of student athletes are going to use this as a knowledge base they go to when they have questions, and they'll search certain topics and go watch that video and read that article. But the student athletes that are going to set themselves apart and really educate themselves up front are the ones who are going to have a huge advantage. And this thing is built for them to go in and devour content on all these topics from all these subject matter experts. So it's exciting, and it's also built in a way where a lot of institutions who are running courses on campus and meetups for student athletes are taking that content and putting it inside of the influencer storyteller playbook as well for the student athletes at their institution. So all those things are going to create a lot of knowledge right at their fingertips.
Yeah, boy, that's really cool. Can't wait to see how that all plays out. So now talk to the student athletes about, pretend I'm a student athlete. I'm a volleyball player at Northern Colorado. I'm an All-American. So what advice do you give me? What should I do, and how should I do it? And where can I go for this? What advice do you give me?
Well, first off, you need to look at yourself both as an athlete, and also even more so as a person, right? And so there's two parts to your story. There's the inside the lines and there's the outside the lines. And so the content shot of you playing, practicing, the part of your story that makes you an athlete, you need to get that out there and show the journey with your teammates, with the fans, with your family, all the people that support you in your dream as a college athlete. And that needs to be a big part of your story, but that's the inside the lines part of your story. As one of my favorite athletes who's now retired and won a Super Bowl told me, if people talk about me winning a Super Bowl at my funeral, I have been a failure in life, right? And so there's the outside the lines part of your story, which is way more important. And a lot of people don't ever see that. They just see you as an athlete, so they forget you're a person. And so what makes you tick? What are you passionate about philanthropically? What movements do you get behind? What passions do you have outside of sports, whether it's business or training or dancing or esports? I've seen it all. And so how do you start to weave those things into your story? And how do you do it all with humility so that people feel like you're approachable? When they direct message you on social, they know you'll respond. When they tag you in a post, they know you'll comment and reshare it. These are people who care about you now because you're an athlete, but 5-10 years from now, they might not care about you as much because you're not playing anymore. How can you make the most of those relationships while you have them? And so thinking about all these things is the beginning of crafting a story that makes you unique, that's going to attract opportunities to make money and help you have a strategy where you can then say, I'm not just going to put this out there on my social media. I'm going to, because I love fitness and I'm posting about fitness, I'm going to start a training business where 3-4 times a week, I train people and I charge for it. And I'm going to do that through my business and my social media in a way where I'm going to make money. And so those things that you're doing free, just telling your story, are going to attract the paid opportunities that you need to go realize. And that's so important for student athletes to understand, because if you're not multidimensional in how you tell your story, you're going to miss out on a lot of opportunities that you attract.
Yeah, boy, that's really good advice right there. And I think that'll become more meaningful as the months go along here for our student athletes. So, all right, let's spend a little time in the crystal ball here. Right now, as we know, it's mid-July. We're filming this in 2021. Let's fast forward. Let's pretend it's a year from today. And so it's July of 2022. What does your crystal ball look like in this space? Where do you see it going, both maybe positively and negatively? Let's think about it that way. What do you think?
Well, I think, first of all, a year from now, I'd like to think we will have one set of regulations. And the reason I think that's important to start with, even though we're thinking through the lens of the student athlete, is I think it's confusing for student athletes to have different rules at different schools. They talk to each other, their peers, and it'll be really great for them to have one set of rules to know they need to follow. It'd also be fair for schools that are recruiting against each other and some of the other things. Some schools let you use the marks, some schools won't. That can be an advantage. So just one set of rules, I think, first thing a year from now, I think will be in place. Number two, I think what we'll see is NIL is going to be something where a lot of student athletes just make some extra money. And it's not going to be a lot of extra money, but it's going to be a nice to have. And it's going to be something that they couldn't have done before that they're not going to be able to take advantage of. But we will also get rid of the myth that I think a lot of student athletes, unfortunately, right now believe in, which is that they can just put out on social media, hey, my DMs are open for business, and they're just going to make money. They're going to see it's hard. And we're going to learn in the first year about the top 100 success stories of student athletes taking initiative in building a real NIL business, a business that isn't completely just tied to sports, but it's going to have all kinds of variants in other industries that student athletes will have been able to tap into for the first time ever to make 5 figures, maybe even 6 figures annually. And it won't just be the Trevor Lawrence stories. There'll be stories of non-revenue sport athletes who are good, but also use that to create a new business that is going to be the roadmap, the blueprint, if you will, for student athletes in the 2022-2023 class to start following. I think it will compound from there. And I think that you're going to see student athletes set themselves apart and become the model that other student athletes who want to build a successful NIL business will follow. And none of us, whether we have great education or great technology, can do it for those student athletes. They're going to have to see their peers do it themselves.
Yeah, good point. I would add that let's look on the other side of this too. The businesses are going to get smarter about how they can leverage their resources in this space too. And so, if you think about, if we were running a business that wanted to have some of these athletes, we've got to pick and choose. How are we going to measure our return on investment in these? And so there'll be some success stories there, and there'll be some not so successful stories there of money spent that, and so I think from a business standpoint, the opportunities will be more directed and more specific. People will be smarter from the business side of it as well, not only the school and the student athlete side. So I look forward to seeing that piece.
And I think there's an important point there that you're making, that you talk about the positives and negatives. I think right now, the reality is this: a lot of businesses don't know how to even get into the space. I mean, I get messages every day from companies saying, hey, how can I get into your app, or how can I get into this space? Can you help me, whatever? And we've chosen not to be a marketplace that works directly with the businesses because we're focused on working with the institution, the student athlete. But we have partners inside the Influencer Exchange who do have relationships with companies that want to spend endorsement dollars, or with fans who want to pay athletes for specific services. And we're happy to educate athletes about that and show them how to sign up for those different platforms and make money. But we've had to go through a diligence process to make sure those platforms are going to do things compliantly. There's a lot of businesses that are going to come into this space and they just don't know what compliantly even means. And as I mentioned before, student athletes struggle understanding the regulations at their institution as well. And so the biggest negative in this first year is just going to be people not even trying to break the rules, but doing it. And I think that that's just going to be a process that we work through, and businesses are going to have to learn the rules. Student athletes are going to have to learn the rules. Another thing is, I think a lot of businesses that want to spend money in NIL with student athletes are going to wait 6 months or so before they do. They're going to finish out this year. When they start to look at their 2022 budget, they'll start to consider this. And some of it's because they're watching and waiting and seeing how all this is going to work. So a year from now, I think we're going to see new businesses coming into the space that have been waiting. We're going to see one set of unified rules, and we're going to see learnings from mistakes with regulations by student athletes and by businesses.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Okay, real talk at the end here, Jim. What's the marketability for a balding, kind of a little overweight 50s commissioner at the Division I level? What are you thinking? Where am I going to?
I'll tell you what. With how well you've done on this interview, I think you need to get out there more with content. I think there's a lot of sponsors that would want to work with you. This is a great interview.
Yeah, it's good. Good answer, Jim. That's awesome. Good business decision there by you. That's awesome. So, well, great. Well, Jim, thank you so much for your time today. It was really a pleasure talking about this. There's so much happening in the space, and we're just at the cutting edge of this. And hopefully, we're able to answer a lot of questions that came up here. And who knows, down the road we might do version 2 of this as we get smarter and smarter. But thank you for the partnership. Thank you for your time today, and I wish you nothing but the best.
Same to you, Tom. We're all excited here at the Influencer headquarters to start working with all the institutions in the Big Sky and go into this new era together with you, and appreciate your leadership and vision to do a partnership like this that brings so much new value to all your schools right away. We're really pumped about it.